Today's question is from one of our subscribers who's participating in the Fast Track Challenge, and she wants to know, is there anything you suggest eating before a workout for energy, or do pre-workout supplements provide a sufficient boost? Okay, this is a great question because you've got three different topics here. You've got food, you've got training, and you've got supplementation. So I'll try to provide as succinct of an answer as I possibly can. One of the goals of the Fast Track Challenge, or the Fast Track Program, which, by the way, FAST stands for Fat Adapted Strength Training. One of the goals of the program is to become metabolically flexible. That means you should be able to transition from a fasted state to a fed state pretty much seamlessly. That you develop the ability to burn stored body fat as fuel just as well as you would dietary fat or even dietary carbohydrate. So it depends on the type of workout that you're doing, the time that you're doing it, and what can you do immediately after the workout. So those are factors that would determine my answer. I'm going to give you kind of my little frame of reference here. Two different types of training: cardiovascular and strength training. Those are defined by states that the body's in. It's either aerobic or anaerobic. Aerobic activity uses oxygen. That type of activity can be fueled by stored body fat. Anaerobic activity, or higher intensity type activity, is anaerobic, means that your body can't break down fat fast enough to supply the energy for that type of activity. So it does rely on glucose. But understanding our body has the ability to store excess glucose in the muscle in the form of glycogen. So for your weight training, for example, you are going to be using glucose to power that activity, but you don't necessarily need to eat carbohydrates or glucose prior to the event, because the glucose that you're burning is actually going to come from carbohydrates that you ate yesterday or even maybe several days ago that are stored in your body as glycogen. So you shouldn't really need to eat in order to fuel your performance. If you do feel weak or tired or run down or any of that without carbohydrates, that's a sure sign that your metabolism is impaired, that you are what we call glucose dependent. It's not our natural state. It's a conditioned way of being from doing what the typical American does, which is eat carbohydrates very frequently in pretty high amounts for a long, long period of time. Your body attunes itself to whatever you're doing. So if you're used to eating carbs and burning sugar, you're going to just have the machinery in place to burn more sugar. When you train your body to use stored body fat as fuel, you build up more of the metabolic machinery that allows you to be able to access that stored body fat as fuel. Personally, I split my workout into two different sessions, which is a cardio training early in the morning, which I do in the fasted state. I'll have my last meal of the day before, 8 p.m. This is happening around 7 a.m., so almost 12 hours since my last meal. I do have a small amount of coffee, so I got some caffeine in there, along with just a dash of some ready-to-drink protein, not really enough to interrupt the fasted state, because when you eat carbohydrates specifically, it increases insulin. When insulin goes up, you have to burn the carbohydrate. You can't access your stored body fat. So I want to make sure I'm burning body fat during the workout. So those are two different factors that I'm going to concentrate on. When I do that early morning fasted cardio, I'm going to do that without eating anything ahead of time, without eating specifically carbohydrates ahead of time. And I'm also going to keep the intensity level below the target heart rate range so that I'm burning primarily fat during the workout. Your heart rate formula is going to be 180 minus your age. That's your maximum heart rate that you want to be at for your cardiovascular type activity. That's going to be anaerobic. That means we got plenty of oxygen coming in. We're breaking down fat for fuel. Okay, the only way you can break that is if you eat carbohydrates. Then you have to burn the carbohydrates because you have to get them out of your bloodstream. So we don't want to be carb burning or sugar burning. We want to be burning fat. So Fasted training is better for cardio. There's another way you can structure that, and I'll come back to it in just a minute. The other type of training is weight training or strength training. This does rely on glucose or could be carbohydrate or could be even protein that your body converted over to glucose or glycogen that's stored in the muscle. So again, you don't really need to eat ahead of time to support that activity. You've already got the stored glycogen in there from your last few meals or even from the previous weekend. You can store that long term. Your body always has to have some glucose on hand. So even though we may not have eaten any carbohydrates for several days, you're still going to have glycogen stored in your muscles that your body can tap into when it needs it. But the rest of the time, you're going to be burning fat for fuel, which is what we want to do. We want to burn more fat and burn less sugar. So in that scenario, you don't necessarily have to eat, but I do my weight training in the afternoon around 2 o'clock or 2:30. By that time, I've already had, like I said, a little coffee around 5 a.m. I've eaten a whole food meal of some scrambled eggs for breakfast after my cardio, and I've had some lunch, usually some salmon, maybe a protein bar, about an hour ahead of time. So not only do I have glycogen stored in the muscle, but maybe I do have a little glucose circulating in the bloodstream, which is what the body's going to use for that weight training. I have done some experiments where I did fasted weight training. I fasted 21 hours a day, and I'm talking strict fast, nothing but black coffee. 21 hours per day. I did that for a full month. Okay. I tried the weight training halfway through the fasting window in the morning, and I tried it at the very end of the fasting window after fasting for 20 hours. Didn't really notice much of a difference either way. That's the point I'm getting at is you should still have energy even if you don't eat. So fasted versus fed training is a big part of the question here, but there are also different energy pathways that the body uses to provide fuel. With weight training, we do need the glucose on hand, but we can store that. So we don't need to eat for that. That being said, I prefer having a few meals, like I said, an hour or two before the weight training. I just feel better. Okay. Um, the next part of this is about pre-workout supplements. Most of the so-called pre-workouts are basically just caffeine. Sometimes they have some ingredients that are nitric oxide boosters like the amino acids L-citrulline or L-arginine. Basically, what those do is they're vasodilators. They open up the blood vessels and allow better blood flow and circulation. So that when you're weight training, you get a better pump, you get more blood in the muscle. Also, blood delivers oxygen and nutrients to the working muscles. So that part is twofold. The caffeine is usually a high dose of stimulants. The downside of pre-workouts is you can become dependent on them. And when you don't have your pre-workout, you feel terrible. Again, the training, the time of day that you're training is also a factor. If you're going to train at the end of your workday and you're going to try to take some 200, 300 milligrams of caffeine before the workout and then try to go home and go to sleep a couple, 3 hours later, you might find that that affects your sleep quality. So another reason why you might want to shy away from those pre-workout supplements or just not make a habit of it. Make it a kind of a sometimes thing. I guess that's a good way of looking at it. Personally, I do drink energy drinks, usually not right before the workout, but maybe a couple hours ahead of time and some coffee. So I do have some caffeine circulating pretty much all the time up until about 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. That's my cutoff for caffeine. I usually go to bed around 9, so I need that much time to clear caffeine out of my system so that it doesn't affect my sleep quality. Your ability to metabolize caffeine is individual. Some people are fast metabolizers, and some people, the half-life of caffeine is 24 hours or more. So your sensitivity to caffeine would also determine whether that's something you want to do or not. That being said, the individual ingredients, they are something that I do take advantage of. Like I said, caffeine from coffee and the energy drinks, which I know is a bad habit. I'm trying to slow down on that a little bit. Another thing that I do is just the raw powder, the citrulline. That is, and by the way, I will, to the client who asked me this, I'll transcribe this and send you a list, and where you can pick these things up with your discounts for being part of my community and being a client. Citrulline, that's a powder. I just when I get ready to do my weight training in the afternoon, I throw in a couple of scoops of that citrulline. That's 3,000 milligrams. I do that twice a day for the reasons I mentioned, the performance boost. Also, it does give you kind of a vascular appearance. So, guys especially kind of want that leaner, more muscular look. It helps with that aesthetic, but it also provides oxygen and blood to the working muscles. So there is a performance benefit to using citrulline. Again, that's a nitric oxide booster. And that's an ingredient in a lot of these formulas, but you can get it just as a raw powder and kind of make your own little creation. Currently, I'm experimenting with a little sodium pre-workout. Electrolytes are very, very important, especially if you're doing a low carbohydrate or ketogenic approach. Some people feel that run down, or what they call the keto flu, when embarking on a ketogenic diet or a very low carbohydrate diet. That is a sign that you are deficient in electrolytes, that you are becoming dehydrated, because carbohydrate holds water in your body. So when you deplete carbohydrate and glycogen and you don't refill it, your body's going to rid itself of some of the excess water. That may cause you to feel not so good. Electrolytes are a good fix for that. Sodium is the main electrolyte. So I'm experimenting with that Himalayan salt. I'm doing a scoop, so that's about 1,500 milligrams of sodium, mostly, along with some other trace minerals through the Himalayan salt. I'm taking that along with my citrulline pre-workout. During the workout, I'm sipping on some branch chain amino acids. That's another supplement. Branch chain amino acids, or amino acids, are the building blocks of protein. The main ones that we need the highest amount for muscle protein synthesis are leucine, isoleucine, and valine. Those are known as the branch chain amino acids. I take those around the workout, before and during the workout, to prevent muscle tissue from breaking down during the workout. That's the main purpose of it. So I want to make sure I'm preserving as much muscle as possible and not tearing it down during the workout process. They also have added electrolytes. It's a handy way to add some flavor to your water so that you'll be more likely to consume more fluid and stay hydrated. That's another good reason to do the branch chain amino acids. The brand I like is Xtend, Xtend, and you can get that at Vitamin Shop. If you're a listener, you have my discount code. You can use my commercial account there. I should say if you're a client, I'll message you through the app. So that's it as far as supplements around and during the workout. Now, it's critical to think about what is your nutrition looking like after the workout. The post-training window, as it's known, is a very critical time because, as I mentioned, when you're doing weight training, you're tearing down muscle tissue. You're damaging the muscle. The idea is to build it back up to where it was and a little bit better before you come back and train it again. When you go to the gym, it's like you're digging a hole, and then you got to fill that hole back in and maybe even build up a little bit of a wall before you go back and start digging again. So this cycle of tear down and rebuilding is always happening. Every cell in our body is made primarily of protein. That's why it's our highest nutritional need on a daily basis. Our skin, hair, nails, bones, joints, organs, muscle, everything in the body is made of protein. And those cells are always dying and rebuilding anyway. Now we come along and do some exercise, some weight training, we're going to further increase our needs for protein because we're tearing the muscle down even more. So in that respect, I think a critical supplement to use around your training would be some type of high quality protein powder, like a whey protein isolate, or a product like MRE Light from Redcon One. That's one I recommend to clients, and people really like it because it's not a dairy product. It contains a spectrum. It's beef protein, fish, chicken, egg. It's a blend of different types of protein. Highly bioavailable. Sounds disgusting, tastes amazing. I've never had anybody say they didn't like the flavor on this stuff. You can get that at Vitamin Shop, or I do actually carry at my office. If you're an in-person client, I carry the smaller serving size of that you can pick up in person. So that is the biggest recommendation as far as supplements go. Some type of high quality protein. You want to try to get that within an hour after your workout to get back on the plus side. That's the point in time where it's most absorbable. Now, your body actually takes in protein, builds and rebuilds all this tissue on a 24-hour cycle. So it's not true that if you don't get 30 to 40 grams of protein within an hour of working out, that you're just wasting your time. That's marketing nonsense. That's not true. If that was true, our species never would have survived as long as it has, because we had frequent times in our early history that we were not eating constantly the way we do now and doing a lot of physical labor or movement type activities and not eating on a schedule and not eating immediately after the activity. So as long as you got it within that 24 hours or even within a week, really, you got to start to look at things on a 7-day cycle. Your numbers may not be exactly perfect every single day, but it averages out to a certain amount. Protein as a supplement is a huge consideration. I think I covered everything in my bullet points here. There are a few performance products that I like from a company called Swiss Chems. You can find that at direct.me/reshape. There are some products there in the research chemicals and supplements category. If you click on that and visit the website, you can use code RESHAPE to save on direct shipped orders, or you can email me for $25 off coupon that you can use on your orders. I will send to this client who's asking me this question, I will send you a link to one of those products. If you're listening to this video or watching this and you want more information on that, just message me privately and I will be able to help you out with that. So that's all we have for today. Thanks for listening, and until next time, stay strong and enjoy the journey.